Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Today we have a slightly different topic, which is not directly related to our domain, that is privacy, but that is all about a skill which we all need in our everyday life and at every step of our work. So let's hear about communication, effective communication from Mr. Namith. I now invite Mr. Satya to formally introduce Namith.
Thank you, Manju. And I have the pleasure in introducing Mr. Namith Kothari, who is the founder and chief consultant for software and web technologies at Triple Plus Solutions, which is based out of Raipur in Chhattisgarh. With a fair degree of flair for problem solving, he loves to learn, unlearn, and experiment with technologies. He comes from a completely technical background, and he tries to apply those technical concepts to life problems, especially in the areas for SMEs. He's also currently a student of cyber law and cyber forensics at NLSIU, Bangalore, approaching techno-legal knowledge. He thinks data privacy and protection are fundamental to everyone in today's interconnected, intertied network systems. So with that introduction, I would like to invite Mr. Namith Kothari to go ahead with the session.
Yeah, Namith, you can take over. I think you have to unmute.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's a pleasure to present today. These are the concepts which
Your screen sharing has gone.
I'm not sure, sir. 1 second. Hold on. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having the patience. It's a pleasure to present the presentation today. It's a compilation of different ideas I had experienced over the period of time, and I would like to present the learnings to you guys. So the topic is called understanding communication. As you can see on the screen, it has both business and personal kind of communication, which we'll be covering. Basically, the concepts are applicable to both the areas. My contact details are there. Anybody wishing to reach me is available, can reach me on those contact details. So let's start. There's some small requests. There will be some kind of audio-visual presentation being played, so request to mute yourself during that period. You can post questions in the chat. Manju ma'am, please let me know. You can take like 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes, you can ask questions, and we can go. We can have a small bit of question answers during that period.
Sure.
This is supposed to be like 90 minutes presentation. Now I've compressed it to a 45-minute one. So please excuse me if I go fast and there are certain concepts which I do not cover. Now let's move on to the first concept, which is intimation. Please go to the slide. I'll take a few moments here. So I'd like you guys to come up with different kind of communication problems you guys face during your day-to-day life communication, your work life communications, your personal life communications. Just a few one word problems you are facing. Like we can have a list of that. Can we have some words, like some problems you're facing? Anybody can unmute and speak up at this point.
So telling a client that, he's asking questions more than the area that he's subscribed for.
Okay.
So, and I'm giving you a typical situation during an audit where the client is exercising the right of audit, but He wants to snoop into different areas which are beyond the scope
Okay,
of
so some one word. What would be overreaching communication?
Yeah.
no. So the communication is to tell him politely that those are out of scope areas.
Okay, so the client is trying to approach out of the scope communication, out of the scope information.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone?
NK Goel here.
Yes,
The
sir.
problem appears at the level of understanding between the two persons. If I use a word, I love you, it has different meaning for me, different meaning for other person. Thank
Yes.
you.
That would be context, I guess. Anybody else? Anybody facing problems in speaking itself in front of a large audience? Is everybody comfortable speaking in front of the audience? Is there a fear? Is there some kind of non-clarity of ideas while speaking? So there are, I mean, just to mention a few, these ideas, these problems are very prevalent and very, very common problems. So let's take up let's take up how these can be classified in the first place. So going to the next slide, it can be classified into 4 primary groups as speech quality, content quality, comprehension, and likability. This applies to one-to-one communication, one-to-many communication. Even if you are a politician and if you are giving a speech, one to many, many, many. So all of these are important in the sense that each of these groups has specific traits and specific attributes which affect the overall quality of communication. I'll take you quickly through one of them, each of them one by one, and give a brief about what I'm speaking. I'm trying to access here, what I'm trying to explain here better. Volume. So obviously it's about the loudness, how loud the speaker is speaking. Is he loud? Is he not loud? Is he, I mean, feeble? Not enough to listen, not enough to for the other person to hear. Speed of the communication. Some people can speak a lot. Some people speak a lot in a very few in a moments, less time. Somebody speaks faster. Pronunciation. Different people speak the same word in different ways. Different like a pronunciation for education. Different pronunciations are prevalent. Which one is the correct one? The commonly accepted rule is the one which is more prevalent. Pauses and fillers. People take pauses, long pauses, short pauses while speaking. Fillers are those words like yeah, all those are fillers, which are basically sounds which the speakers speak to fill in the gaps. I will do a lot of fillers here. Please be aware. Emphasis on certain words, which words are important. Sometimes people emphasize on words as well, which are not important. So that one. Accent. What kind of accent they are speaking? It can be an Indian accent. It can be an Oxford English. It can be US English. It can be Hindi. It depends on the language. And it depends on the expertise of that person speaking. Fluency. Fluency is a very important trait where the person who is trying to speak up is trying to explain in a specific way, in a specific speed, in a specific way, what the idea is he's trying to communicate. If the person is not fluent enough, the other person might get bored. The listeners might get bored, might be turned off. Voice tonality, it's a very, very important natural trait of humans. It varies from person to person. Some people have very soft voice. Some people have very comfortable and soothing voice. People like to hear that voice. Some people have very bad, I would say bad voice. It is not hearable. Some people just want to, shut the person off and then be quiet. It happens. There is a concept of lip reading for people with different, who are differently abled, and their abilities are different. So for certain set of people, listening is not a very good skill. So what they are trained is in lip reading. And if the person who is speaking is aware of such a case scenario, then normally they will do a lip reading exercise, which I'm trying to do right now. So which is readable by other persons while the person speaks, the speaker speaks. This is one quality, one specific group called speech quality. The better the group, the better the ability to communicate. The second the second group is content quality. What the person is speaking about. Is the person sensible? What he's talking is logical. Does it make sense? Obviously, the content has to be good enough for the other person to be interested in. Vocabulary. How good is the vocabulary? How good is the person able to tell the concepts, bigger concepts, scenarios, situations in least number of words? In a good quality vocabulary, multiple words can be just replaced by one single word to explain that specific scenario. That comes with experience, and that comes with a lot of reading and a lot of practice of speaking. Grammar, which is a very big factor, specifically for us Indians, and specifically in the northern areas. It's a big problem. What we learn while, I'll give example of English, and while we are learning English, there's a lot of, it's a huge grammar to be, grasped and learned. Sometimes that certain portions are left out, and because of that, the persons are unable to apply the right grammar in the right context, and that can create disasters as well. Slang, mistake, usage of slang, usage of uncommon made up words also reduces the language ability of perfectness and understanding. Like what Goyal sir explained, the concept, the context in which one understands one single word can, differ with the other word, can differ with a different person. Both of them can have different concepts with the same, when the same word is uttered. Why is this so? Because everybody has their own understanding of those words and the context in which they are used. So in that perspective, slangs, certain kinds of mistakes. I'll take example of English, which is formally accepted as a word in Oxford Dictionary. But beyond that, there are certain words which are not standard words, which we are still used to getting, speaking in English, yet making it a slang. Sometimes it's a mistake as well. It reduces the language pureness, basically. Curse words. These are these are very common among Indians as well. Not only restricted to Indians, restricted to overall, every country in the world has those. It comes up over the time with different concepts evolving into single word, curses. The best example would be someone driving on a highway, and there is some kind of a stoppage which is not expected. The person will start normally, they will start up curse words. Normally when we drive in Indian roads, it's quite, hearable. It's something which is not very uncommon. Feeling of richness. So when somebody speaks, the usage of words can make the other person really feel nice. Learning new words, explanation in the new words, different topics covered in a new context, different in a new context, and all of that can create a feeling of richness while hearing the other person. That is part of the content, what the other person is speaking. So choice of words can be a really good, turning thing. It can turn tables, basically. Now, apart from that, these are the two primary ones. I would actually classify the other two groups as secondary. So once you are good with your speech, once you are good with your content quality, the third part comes up as the comprehension. Now, what is comprehension? If somebody is speaking and I'm listening, if I'm able to understand those ideas, those structures of the ideas, if they are linked structures, one person, the speaker can, jump from one concept to a different concept, linking together each other. How good are they structured? How formed are they? Are they clear? Are they? If I hear them, can I understand them in a single way? In the first instance, are those concepts linkable? Can they be linked together to form a complete story? Can I, summarize that story in simple words? If I am able to do that, I've comprehended the entire concept. The communication the person is trying to do is successful. Now, apart from comprehension can also come up from non-verbal cues. Somebody is not speaking, but just, is just doing some gestures, is just doing from some kind of a hand movement, some kind of a face muscle movement. If I'm laughing, it can mean something to someone. That obviously the context can be different for different people in which they're understanding the entire concept. If the person who's trying to explain it, the concept the person is trying to explain is if the receiver, if the listener, or if the watcher of those gestures is able to comprehend the exact same idea what the speaker is trying to do, the communication is successful. The person has comprehended. So that becomes another trait which people should be going for. Once the entire comprehension is done, is it memorable? Anybody remembers Jawaharlal Nehru's first speech? Those moments are memorable. People can remember lots of moments just because the way a person is trying to communicate. Apart from non-verbal, in the non-verbal cues, there is a very good option of there's a very good classification of hand movements. And I have a very good video which I would like to show to you guys. It's from a known personality in India. I'll just play it right away. It's the name of the person is Vinita Singh, and she is a shark. She's appeared on a show called Shark Tank, which you I'll play the video. Please have a watch on the gestures and the hand movements of the person.
When I first started my company, I thought I'm going to IPO in 5 years, and I failed so much in those 5 years. It was just so tough and so humiliating, because I always thought I was like the best in my college, at IIT, at IIM, and I could do anything. And that those 5 years of like struggling and failing and not getting business and not being able to scale it was one of those defining moments. And I think that was very liberating, because the next time I got into it, I was very patient.
So we can see how effective are those expressions and movements. So the way, had it been a plain and simple way of speaking, it would have been not very effective. But because of the hands, the person gets more confidence. The person is in a better way to speak up. So I'll take up the last group, which is grooming, basically the likability. So people like specific speakers because they have an inclination of hearing to that person, and those can be because of the different traits mentioned here. Sometimes it's grooming, the hygiene, expressions, gestures, mannerisms, habits, sometimes etiquettes as well. Sometimes the effect which is there after somebody speaks out. So if after the person has spoken, there's a feeling that, okay, I want to hear more about it. I want to hear more from the person. Sometimes it can be the voice, it can be the speaker, it can be the content. There can be multiple reasons for that. So that creates an effective communication. And this is not restricted to any specific one-to-one communication. It's applicable to a group conversation as well. It's applicable to a one-to-many conversation as well. So in the next slide, I'm going to play specific videos and let you analyze different traits which are mentioned here. I request you to try to classify those persons in those respects, or come up with a number out of 10, like how would you rate that person's ability to communicate. Now the communication has different 4 parts which I've mentioned: the ability to speak well, the speech part, the content part, what the person is speaking, is it worthwhile, is it sensible, the quality of that content, the comprehension. The third part is if you're able to understand what the person is trying to say. And the fourth part is the likability. Is the person likable? Would you like to hear the person again? So please go through the next videos. I'm going to play the next videos in sequence. There are 5 videos. It will hardly take like 5 minutes. So I'm going to play now. So this is the first video of Dr. Manmohan Singh. Is
I was a
this
silent
audible?
Prime Minister. I think these volumes speak for themselves. I certainly would like to say that I was not the Prime Minister who was afraid of talking to the press. I met the press regularly, and on every foreign trip that I undertook, I had a press conference on return in the plane or after immediately after landing.
So that's first video. Would you like to take some time off to understand, think on how he has performed out of on these 4 parameters? So if you can quickly, come up with your numbers, that will be great.
Zero.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, please keep the numbers with yourself. Sorry?
It would be near to 0 only.
Okay. So anybody who would like to add, please keep up your numbers ready. I'll share a small document like this, which looks like that. Basically like this, out of these 4 parameters. It's basically, a visual way to represent those numbers where you can give a score out of 1 to 10, however you are however you're feeling, or maybe 0 to 10, which is fine. So this is something, you can, let's say if somebody is saying 0, so I'll say 0 on speech quality is 0, or it's overall 0.
Total 0.
So I'll say all of them 0. So basically it's a point in the entire array of the parameters. Let's say, how would you rate Namith sir as a speaker?
7.
Please tell me the scores in group wise scores so that we can see a graphing of how it works. Any one instance I'll just show and then I'll move to the next video. Anyone? Okay, so
Put some score, like speech quality.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to come up with a genuine.
You put speech quality 6, content quality 4, comprehension 3, and likability 4 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the result what you come up with.
Yeah.
So if you can see the graph, I hope you are able to see the graph on the right hand side.
Yeah.
So it's basic. You can have these are the group wise attributes. So if somebody wants to have a detailed, sorry, come again. There's somebody's trying to speak. Anyone? Okay, so out of these are the group qualities. If somebody wants it more granulated, what they can do is they can add these parameters as well in the Excel sheet, and they will come up with a more granulated form of the graph. So they can add speed, volume. They can have different parameters, different numbers for each of those parameters. So this is how it will look. I'll go to the next video. This is number 2. This is from a politician from Karnataka. His name is, I believe, Manju or something. So I'm sorry, I'm not fully aware of it, but it's very funny.
Deepak, I think.
No, he's not the. I'll play the video. You'll come to know. So
empowered sometimes,
I'll reduce the volume.
Right? Because when you really feel powerful, you feel you have the power over everybody.
Why you want to enjoy your power over ladies? You enjoy your power over gents. Why you want to enjoy on ladies? Ladies' residents, they are preparing food. Want to enjoy for them in this night time. It's not a good. No, sir. I don't want to talk this, sir. It's too much.
But I heard, but I heard that you also have an opinion about Swami Nityananda.
He said, sir, if you put orange clothing and one turban and Rudraksh Mala, it's not you have become Lord Shiva.
Mr. Manju.
So he's the second person. Obviously, the idea is for you to come up with those scores. For your, you don't have to share the scores, but you understand the exercise now, right? I'll play the third video of Dr. Shashi Tharoor here.
Staying with India, between 15 and 29 million Indians died of starvation in British-induced famines. The most famous example, of course, was the Great Bengal Famine during the Second World War, when 4 million people died because Winston Churchill deliberately, as a matter of written minuted policy, proceeded to divert essential supplies from civilians in Bengal to sturdy Tommies and Europeans as reserve stockpiles. He said that the starvation of anyway underfed Bengalis mattered much less than that of sturdy Greeks. This is Churchill's actual quote. And when conscience-stricken British officials wrote to him, pointing out that people were dying because of this decision, he peevishly wrote in the margins of the file, "Why hasn't Gandhi died yet?"
Now the fourth one is of the gentleman he was talking about in the previous video.
To make physics out of time, no. You can't make physics out of time. You can only make chemistry with time. Have a right chemistry with time. You cannot make physics out of time. If you make physics out of time, you will be dead. If you have a right chemistry with time, you will become biology, alive. Right chemistry with time will make you biology, living.
Okay. In this particular specific video, I like to point out the trait of try to rate the person individually on speech quality, the way he's speaking, the comprehension part. Obviously, I don't know how much you'll rate. The content quality, what he's speaking, it's obvious how much it should be rated. And the likability, would you like to hear the same person again? Some people are not, sometimes we don't feel that, okay, this person is worth our time, but still people like to hear the person, and that makes the person popular, makes the person likable. That's also there. Those conditions are also there. I'm sorry, I was trying to cover the concepts, but unfortunately could not find a lady speaker. I tried to add Vinita's video later on, as a option to specify the effectiveness of hand gestures and faces. So please excuse me for that, ladies, specifically the ladies. So I hope this exercise has made the concepts very clear. Like, if you broadly classify the person's traits into 4 different categories, you can identify whether the person is a good speaker or not. That's the first exercise. The second exercise is you try to fit yourself inside those parameters and try to figure out, are you something, are you a good speaker? Are you a good communicator? It doesn't mean that you have to speak into multiples of people. It can be a one-to-one conversation with your, let's say, it's a personal communication. It could be with your spouse, it could be with your kids, with your father, your parents, could be with anybody, your friend. So try to apply those concepts in your day-to-day life conversations and see how effective it can be made. By improving on those parameters, the communication will automatically get improved. Your relationships will change, will go towards a betterment. Try that, and please let me know if it made any change in your life. Now, how are those concepts itself related? So if you want to be a good communicator, the better way is to, have the speech quality as per the audience, how they want it to be, rather than how you want it to be. Have the content quality as per the experts in that specific content, specific area of the topic you're speaking about. Am I audible here? There seems to be some kind of...
Yeah. No, you're audible. You go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'll continue. Now, comprehension is basically a combination of speech and content quality. If the speech quality is poor and the content quality is great, the comprehension won't be as effective. Vice versa, like the speech quality is great, but the content quality is not nice. The comprehension cannot take place. Obviously, the content doesn't make sense. You can recall the right video out of the 5 I showed. The likability factor. So you would like to have your communications in a way which makes you likable. I would like to give an example of Namith here. He has great communication skills. He's able to communicate the ideas directly, and he's likable because of his personality, the way he speaks. There are mannerisms, specifics. So these are my personal opinions. It can vary from person to person. So I would give a 9 to Navisa. Somebody said 7 or something. Somebody would say like 10. Somebody would say 2, or it can change with person to person as per how they feel. So if we are totally getting those 4 concepts, we can improve our communications. So I mean, in the respect of time, I'll skip the ordering activity which I planned before to get those graphs. Obviously you guys can do it yourself. I will share that Excel sheet, and you can experiment with different parameters. If you want more details, you can add those additional parameters. Coming to the 7th slide, after understanding all of this, I'm asking this question like, what is the object of communication? Obviously, one person has some kind of an idea in his mind. That person is trying to communicate that idea to the other person. And it has to be done in the minimum effort. If there is a lot of effort, then it's not a good communication. So the objective is to have those ideas directly communicated in the least possible effort. In, let's say, it's words, it's non-verbal cues, it could be written communication. How well can it be, and how efficiently can it be done? That is the objective. So now that's the objective of transfer. Basically, once you are trying to transfer, the first idea comes into your mind. You're trying to transfer it out of your body through a physical medium outside you, which is basically, let's say, if you're speaking, it's air, and you're trying to communicate through that air. You're utilizing one of your sense organs to do that, which is your tongue and your mouth, and different supporting organs which help you speak. So you are utilizing them to communicate that idea into the physical form. Now, how well that idea is communicated and how good that the other person receives it will determine the quality of your communication. Basically, it's down to those 2 points basically. Now, I mentioned sense organs, like you're using your mouth to speak. Now there are different sense organs which you are utilizing to communicate. The sense organs are the primary way to get inputs from outside our world. What is happening around us? Those create the input stimulus for our brain to process and come up with ideas and store it. And maybe when you want to speak up again, these sense organs, a few of them basically are used back. Sometimes not, usually not regularly, and not in their original function way. It could be a different function that sense organ is now trying to do. For example, eyes are the objective of the eyes is to view the visual part and give the feedback to the brain. But eyes can also be used to express. Those can become signal for the other person to read. These are not their normal functions, but they can be used for that. Similarly, touch, similarly use of hands. I'm using my hands to try to have some kind of expression. Sometimes touch, sometimes tongue is also used to express visually, like somebody, it's a very famous painting of Einstein, hanging out his tongue. Reasons, it's communicating something, so those sense organs can be utilized to get inputs as well as give outputs to the world. So when we are communicating, our biggest strength is the sense organs here. So once we are able to master those properties of the sense organs, we'll be able to communicate well. Now, this particular sense organs is a part of the speech quality group, what we were talking about. If you're able to, improve the speech quality, you will be, improve your sense organs, you'll be able to, improve your speech quality as well. The gestures part form the part of comprehension. So, the output signals can be, considered into the comprehension group. So that ways, the sense organs and our senses and sense organs are able to help us communicate better. Going to the next slide. This is exactly the mechanism what I explained to you. So first of all, the idea originates in the speaker's mind, and that idea has no language of its own. It's just an idea which we are unable to express normally. But once we learn the language, we are able to translate that language into its language and the expression. That is the second step. Once that step is done, the person is able to, speak words in his mind. Okay, this is what I'm thinking. and that is language dependent as well. It depends on the grooming, how the person is brought up. It could be a Marathi, it could be Punjabi, it could be Kannada, it could be Tamil. The language, the person normally who every person thinks in their own native language usually. It can vary from different person to person, but normally that is the way it is expressed. Once expression is done, now the words have what the person has thought is basically a visual written language. It does not have sound. Now the person has to speak. Now those words have to be converted into the equivalent phonetics. Let's say I saw Namith sir and I say, okay, hi. So that idea came up with an idea with the expression of hi in my mind. Now I converted it into Hindi, Namaste sir, and then because Hindi is my native language, and once it gets converted, because this is a common group, and the etiquette says that you speak in the the most prominent language, which would be English. So I'm trying to convert that into English to make it a hello or a hi. And then I'm trying to, after doing that in my mind, I'm trying to convert that hi into its equivalent phonetics, so that as soon as I speak that phonetics, the person, Namith sir, is probably able to, hear that over a distance through the medium of sound. And sound usually is, accompanied by a physical medium, which is air. In this case, in the current case, it is through a microphone on a system and the loudspeaker on his system. So the mediums can change, the phonetics can change. I could be speaking a slang. I could be making a mistake. Remember those, qualifiers here. I'll just go back to that slide. Volume, speed, pronunciation. These are all physical parameters. When I'm trying to say hi, all these can change the equivalent result. What goes to what is reached by Namith sir. It can, if that content makes sense. All of those four, all groups are actually applicable. Going back, so this is the speaker's side of the mechanism. Once the listener tries to listen, the person receives some kind of a sound. The person doesn't know what is it. So the ears basically translate into electrical signals, which the brain processes as words. Now, the first thing the brain does is, if it is a trained brain, if it's trained in that specific language, it will try to convert it into legible words, what the sound equivalent is. If it is not, in that case, the person will simply understand nothing. There's no comprehension. The communication ends there. Now, let's say Namith sir is able to understand what I'm trying to say here. So, one second, I'll go back. Sorry. Once the communication is once the person is able to comprehend, those words, now those words may carry some expression, may carry some meaning. Now the equivalent of converting an expression, an idea to the language is the equivalent reverse is done. The language is now converted back to the equivalent idea. What the concept of the idea is, what the structure of the idea is, that our brain processes and then sends it to the memory. So this is just one communication, one-way communication. Speaker is speaking to a listener. Now in a conversation, if it is a group conversation, if it is a normal conversation, the reverse happens. Once the speaker stops speaking, the listener has now it's the listener's time to now speak. And the entire process reverses. The listener becomes speakers, the speaker becomes the listener, and this is just like a ping pong table. The ball is in your court. So wherever the ball is, the person speaks, the other sides listen. Obviously, listeners cannot speak because that will clash. I hope this part is clear. So the next point is, once we have understood the mechanism, it's like, to and fro, constantly to and fro mechanism going this way, that way, this way, that way. So a good conversation is one where both the speaker and a listener are able to comfortably talk with each other, communicate the ideas easily. If there is a group where, once the speaker is speaking, there's a constant interruption by another person, then the person may get irritated, saying that, okay, this person interrupts a lot. He speaks a lot. So, it's better if that person speaks, remains quiet for some time. So this thing can, change the quality of your entire communication. So when you're speaking in a group, or you're talking to specific one-to-one individuals, try to break down that, try to understand, in case the conversation did not go well, try to understand what was the point at which the conversation, went bad. They not succeed. So going to the next point, how to improve it. Now speeches, normally going to the speech quality part, if we are able to add pauses, if I am not speaking constantly, I'm not fluent, I'm not very fluent, sometimes it takes some time for other persons to, comprehend. It takes some time to absorb what the other person is saying. Maybe the idea, communication has happened, still the idea is still not formed, the comprehension has not taken place. So it may take some time for the speaker as well to, for the listener to comprehend completely. So the job of the speaker here is to take some pauses, wait for some time, let the idea absorb in the listener's mind. Emphasis on certain words of importance will give very good, result to the communication. Voice intonation. Sometimes there are certain people who have a different normal speaking voice versus what they do when they sing. I'm talking about professional singers. So the entire intonation of the voice changes, and when that voice is usually in the singer form, that is very sweet, and the other person who is listening, wants to listen more, wants to hear more about it. Whereas when they speak the same thing in the normal voice, in the normal intonation, people may be turned off because it might not appeal to them. It might not be, good to the ears. It happens. How fluent you are, what kind of accent you are using to communicate also changes. So let's say there is someone from the UK and they're trying to speak, Scottish English. Sometimes it's very difficult for, for Indians to comprehend what the other person just said, in spite of them being trained in normal English, which is usually the Oxford English. Because of these issues, it is always better to, apply these, tricks and techniques to improve your overall communication. You might not know exactly how it is reacting, how the other person is reacting, how it is appealing to the other person, but over time, but with experience, you will get to know that. So a constant practice is required. Avoid fillers, content. Obviously, somebody, adding a lot of who is a turn off for anybody listening, specifically who are teachers and, specifically who are, training people. They should consciously avoid that. It's a big turn off. How does the content quality, how do you improve content quality? Try to improve vocabulary. Try to add one-liners. Try to add humor in your conversation. That would improve the content quality. The person gets engaged because if not the personality, the person may get engaged because of the content what the one person is saying. Choice of rich words, choice of good vocabulary, choice of words which explain entire concept in a single word. Those are nice. Culture specific words. This is a very important aspect for those who are constantly dealing with international clients. They're dealing with clients who could be international, could be national as well. Knowledge of cultures is very important. Culture specific words, let's say faucet, tap, example US, UK. When you say faucet, somebody may, it may not be just appealing to someone in the UK. They don't know what is it. It happens. So knowledge of the culture with the person you are trying to communicate is very important. Taking the background of the culture, where the person comes, where the listener, where the audience comes from, is very important. Let's say it's a comedian who's trying to do a stand-up comic, and he's doing it, let's say in China. He doesn't know the background of how the Chinese people the culture is. They may take it as offensive, whatever he speaks. So he has to know the specific culture of the place the person is trying to communicate, or the audience. Just in case he's addressing a large audience. In case it's a one-to-one person, you should know the background of the person, from where he's coming. So some previous homework is important to do. It's always a recommendation to do when you're going for a client meeting. You're trying to go, when you're trying to go to somebody. Let's like the example somebody said in the beginning, like the client is trying to extract more information than what is in the scope of the discussion. In that case, try to understand where from the client is coming, and then appropriately add your response to it. It should not be rude because it's a client. It should be polite. It should have all the aspects of a good communication. I'll move to the last slide. Again, now coming back to that initial concept, what we said, pre-intimation. This is basically switching to us, basically saying that, okay, I'm going to switch to a new version of the previous version of the same slideshow, what you're saying. And this will prepare your mind. Read the concept. It should, you know, it should be absorbed smoothly. I'll switch to the other video then, other presentation in the meanwhile. So this is this is version 1 of the same presentation you are seeing. I'll move back to the exact point which we're trying to discuss next, which is power stances. So when you're adding power stances, I'll take a few minutes more. It might exceed 8 o'clock a bit more, but we should be able to cover the entire, entire presentation that way. So I'll go through it quickly. So stances, how your body language is, how you are standing, how you are, communicating, it reveals a bit of your confidence to the other person who is seeing to you. It could be like, let's say it's a political rally. If the person is very peevishly sitting, then sheepishly, he is very sheepish. People might not like that person. But say if the person is standing, on a high pedestal, who is visible to her in a stance, which shows confidence, the person's, people listening to that person may be very much interested in listening to him more. That creates a better communication. So remember to have power stances. Good dressing helps. Power dressing helps. There's a specific set of colors called English colors, which are usually recommended for politicians, though it varies from place to place, and the stylist's inclination to have contrast as well. But it is usually said to have a good impact on your overall presentation, on overall effective communication. Expression, gestures. Use your face well. You have got good eyebrows, lips, eyes, jaws, cheeks, nose. Use them to express your emotions in a better way. You can see the examples here. If you're sad, if you're happy, if you're angry, if you're irritated, there can be lots of things which are expressed better. But usually we do not pay attention to the way we are reacting. Our eyebrows speak a lot. Our eyes speak a lot. Try to, over time, with experience, with practice, this can be perfected to communicate a very good concept in very simple terms. Maybe you don't even have to speak things. Gestures. A lot of things can be communicated using gestures. V for victory. It's a very common one, right? So it's a like. We use that so often in our WhatsApp communication, in our Telegram communication, because we don't have to communicate that in words. It's a shortcut. The person is able to experience that very well. Am I audible? Sir, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The next one is handshakes, a very important one for corporates. Even for personal, when you're holding hands of your spouse or of your girlfriend, it's applicable to your both professional as well as personal life. How do you which one is right? There's no definitive right. It depends on the situation. It depends on the context in which you're shaking hands. Each refers to a different context. It can mean something different, but a standard is established. So people know, okay, this kind of a handshake. I'll give specific examples of the 7th one. Normally, you will see premiers, whenever diplomats, premiers are shaking hands, this is the normal way. This is additional hand coming out to support. It's a way to have a polite handshake, a confident handshake. Normal business dealings are done this way. The number 5, handshake number 5 is the one normally they do. That's an expression of confidence. There's one more. I will try to show. Yeah, this is the one. Handshake number 4, where the one person is putting and basically, having his hand over the other person's hand. This is a sign of dominance. So the other person is a dominant person who's trying to push back to who's trying to have a handshake with a less dominant person. The last one, handshake number 1, is obviously something you don't want anybody to do to you. Obviously, others also don't expect it from yourself. So somebody, pressing the hand so hard, so that it starts paining. Namaste, greetings. Greetings are the most important part of how you start your conversation. So these are also very important, how you do it. There are different ways to do it. For instance, namastes are different ways. Check number 4, the image number 4 was in this particular image of this gentleman versus the first image here. Both are different. In this case, the hands are spread out. In this case, the hands are not spread out. The case number 2 is namaste. It's a the head is bowed down. Normally it is, but sometimes it is not. Different ways are there. Expression of love. How do you communicate love? This is how you use your hands. You use your expressions along with your hands. This is a specific way. If you communicate it to any person, the person will understand. You're communicating love to the other person. Now this is all part of the personality. Now gestures are part. You can add gestures as part of your likability. So if you're able to master these traits, your likability part will actually better up in that in that graph. So likability basically increases to 10, and that increases your graph that way. So this is the way to quantify and visualize your performance as a communicator. Coming back to the world of emojis, we use them a lot. Each of them expresses, basically these are shortcuts normally used in written communication, sometimes painted on signboards, etc. So those are visual communication, and those can have different effects depending on how they are utilized. Sometimes these are used to communicate puns, sometimes they are used to indicate sarcasm as well. So a lot of things can be communicated using emojis, basically written communication. Now a few examples of how bad what is the result of bad communication. Ray is so sick that he cannot go to the school. Ray's mom, no homework. These are kids. This is basically I think a principal's letter. This is babies. There are a lot of circulations in WhatsApp and LinkedIn groups, like how professional people have also written bad English, bad grammar. So try to improve the grammar, try to improve the language grammar, as well as the written quality of the language. That makes sense. Not only English, it could be Hindi, it could be Marathi, it could be Tamil, it could be Punjabi, it could be Gujarati, Marathi. Lots of language in India. How to improve? I've already given the instances. Now this is the last slide, which is of importance. Why? Because this slide basically is an audio editor. It's an image of an audio editor. The first one is basically guitar, could be guitar. This is the tabla, this is sitar, this is the bongos. This is basically some kind of rhythm going on continuously. So this is the way audio communication is compiled. Exactly the same way, what we can do is we can compile our different communications. Now in this case, each communication can represent basically one sense organ. So your eyes communication, your visual, your ears, nose, haptics, your touch, and basically your haptics, and your olfactory part, nose. All of them can have different signals like that, and each of them is basically feeding your inputs, to your mind. This is the input part. The same can be expressed in the output part as to what you're speaking. You can differentiate based on the different traits what you are saying. You can have some kind of a quality mapping this way. This is just an audio signal. You can create your graphs like that, which is you can expand this particular sheet to have those different kinds of graphs. That concludes our communication part. I've tried to fit in within 45 minutes. It's actually a bit more, but there are more explanations, there are more nuances to it, there are more detailing to it, which I've not covered. In case somebody wants it, we can have a different session, maybe a second session on that. Thank you for your time, and it was great presenting to you. Any questions, please go ahead.
So Deepak here.
Yes, sir.
This one question. So how does one become a messenger of bad news? So if we take an example of breach notification,
Yes.
Since it's a privacy related forum,
Yes,
breaches will occur, and then these will have to be communicated to the customer in some point.
yes. So number one, follow the law. Number one, follow the law. If the law says you have to speak it, you have to communicate it immediately, do it. If you have a timeline, if you have the restriction, the framework of the law, follow that. Now that's the when time, the when part of it, the what part of it. Obviously the expert knows what to communicate, when to communicate, and the part how to communicate is what I'll give some inputs on. If the customer, depends on the customer. The short answer is depends on the customer. How you want to, export the bump to the person. So in case the person is, welcoming, its person is open, person does not mind negative news, speak it straight away. And I feel the best way to normally is that way only. Sometimes it's better to sugarcoat it, maybe, reduce a degree of the effect, reduce a degree of the bomb that ways. What should be the exact way? Depends, sir. I cannot give an exact answer, but normally the person who is interacting with the clients regularly would know that okay, this client is like that. So a better way to approach, communicate would be to subside the things, or to speak it up regularly with facts, figures, come up with detailing. Some people like details, some people don't like details, some people like exact timing, exact incident, replay of what happened. If you can provide all of that to the specific person, it works, it helps. I hope I was able to point out the answers.
Yes, in a way.
Thank you, sir.
Namith, Meena Lal here. Can I make a few points?
Sure,
just to supplement all what you said, and I'm happy I could at the last minute join the session because I'm myself quite interested in communication skills. So
sure, ma'am.
Let me take it in the reverse order. The question that Deepak asked as to how do you break the bad news? First of all, to break the bad news at the earliest is of utmost importance for the professional and the client. So therefore, the bad news must be broken. The way the conversation could go between a client and the consultant is that are we open to have a frank conversation? Taking from there, the conversation will flow. If there is a hesitation on the other side, obviously, Deepak, you will restrain yourself. But if there is no hesitation, then you are straight on the point. The thing is, there are ways of saying that you've not done a good job. Now, one of the ways of saying is the law demanded X, what you have done. I've drawn a comparison. I've mapped what you have done against the legal requirement. What you've done is Y. So therefore, there is a gap. And that is the reason, the gap is the reason that you need to take certain actions. This is indirectly telling the person that there is non-compliance. This is one way. The other way is by saying that if things in your organization would have happened in the following way, it would have been more insulating for the organization. I'm just trying to be a wordsmith here by putting in different words, but it really would flow from the degree of openness that the client would like to approach the conversation with. So that was one part, Deepak, that I wanted to express when you asked the question that how do we approach bad news? And Namith, just to supplement what all you've said, in a speech, what is also very important is to ensure that your point is being put across in multiple words. In multiple words, as in the words of essence. For the words of essence, one could be prepared with a lot of synonyms. For example, if you say that I need to be flexible, now one can say that I need to be flexible, that is elastic, tensile, etc. So synonyms really help drive the point sometimes when you are in an international territory and you don't know whether your accent will be easily grasped or people will find it difficult to be with you at the same speed in communication. So that's the importance of synonyms that I was making. The other is structuring of a speech or structuring of a conversation or structuring of a point becomes very important. You covered it in some way, but in my view, the emphasis on structuring is relevant because the point or the speech or the paragraph has to first say what it is going to say, then say the actual content, and then fold it back, that is, summarize. So the three things actually ensure that the point is the communicator has made the attempt to drive the point home. I know you covered it in some sense, but I just thought I would like to emphasize on that. Then my next point is there should be a endeavor to avoid repetition of words, ideas, and points so that you can make the maximum of the time being made available, as a speaker. Also,
Sure, ma'am.
what reflects a lot of confidence, and that comes in likability or etiquette, as you said. Look into the eyes of the audience. That inspires a lot of confidence.
That's so true. That's so true, ma'am.
So these are some of my points which I thought you could, if you want to cover up in your presentation, you could include. You may wish to include them.
Sure, ma'am. As I said, there are more detailing into it, which I mean, this is normally a 90-minute, session, which I've, reduced to a 45-minute.
Yeah.
I do cover all of that. I do cover those things. Specifically, what you mentioned, international, basically the cultural background of, of the speakers. I do cover all of that. I mean, it's a good feedback from your side. I definitely add. Thank you.
Meena, ma'am, this is Deepak here.
Yeah.
To the point that you mentioned, do you think that it would be appropriate to have two levels of communications, in the sense that usually there would be an account manager for a particular client, and they are more, you may say, more personal in nature rather than professional. So there is a different level of connection that they have with each other, and therefore that kind of information to be communicated is for the account manager to figure out. But the official communication that goes around and which is required to go should be not colored with any emotion, rather be more fact based and
absolutely
more straightforward than say anything else. So rather say that we did whatever we could in our this thing without sounding apologetic too much, or being trying to justify that it was not our mistake, because you state the fact and say that what have we done to address this, and still we would assure that you're still in best hands. It's not that because of this breach probably our association ends.
So I will tell you.
Sorry, please go ahead, ma'am.
So Deepak, what I would like to say is that your conversation with the person with whom you may be interacting on a routine basis in the organization, as in your working hand in the organization, obviously is more free-flowing and more, what should I say, inspiring of confidence, but I want to say more reposing of, trust, in a sense that you can reveal that there has been some error. So that's okay. That's going to be more friendly. But a time will come when you will talk to a hierarchy above that person, correct? And that is when you need to be cautious about the manner of communication. But all that we are talking right now is verbal communication. There will come a time when you may be required to give a written report also. Now, written communication is a different skill by itself. So today, whatever Namith has explained, I think it's from a verbal communication point of view. Secondly, Deepak, what I want to tell you is relationships do not break because of errors. Client relationship breaks because of lack of trust. So if you make a mistake and you go back to the client and you tell the client that, look, this is an error of either judgment, error of knowledge, or error of application, but it's an error which possibly I could have seen, but I've been constrained by certain things and I've not been able to see. But the moment I've noticed, I've come to you and I'm confessing that this is an error which has occurred, okay, unknowingly, unintentionally. Then the relationship is completely different, because I want to share with you from my personal career experiences. Sometimes there have been times when I've made serious errors, once or twice, and I've gone and I've been completely confessional. If the error is on my part and if I'm confessional, it not only inspires confidence in the client, but actually it enhances and multiplies the trust. So that has to be the approach. Maybe you will lose one client if one client becomes restless, and but then your integrity as an open person will still be talked about. So that's my response.
Absolutely. Agree.
Deepak, sir, one more point which I want, something to add to what ma'am has said here. It's not always possible to do that, primarily because cost to company concerns, as you said, to break it down into multiple two levels of communication. It's not always possible. Just it will to have a manager to communicate with the back-end team, having the immediate interface becomes a messenger. That makes it a bit difficult. Also, the cost is involved to the company. Everywhere it's not possible. Some places it's possible, some places it's not. Just 2 points.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions, sir?
May
Okay.
I say something?
Sure, sir.
Yeah, I am Professor N.K. Goyal. I don't have a question, but I'm surprised and amused on the strength and capabilities of Namith Kothari, whom I have met few years before for a cyber conference. We have touched upon a very important and a very difficult topic of communication. I'm also surprised that why I was not attending your programs earlier. I just want to compliment you for this. Thank you very much.
Sir, I'm deeply honored. Thank you so much for the nice words. You're most welcome to attend the programs. I'll start sending the program links regularly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Namith. Actually, it was an interesting new type of program. Communication requirements are important for everybody. Of course, we have some very interesting questions raised. Corporate communication, communication of data breach, and personal communication. Of course, principles are same. It can be applied to different situations. But I think people have got some thoughts on this topic. Now they will be able to perhaps analyze not only their own speech today, because we can always record, and they will all start evaluating the other speakers from now onwards. So all of the speakers have to be a little more careful. But it's good. You have opened the thought process on how to make communication more effective. It's good. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Just adding one more point there. I mean, you really covered it well. Let's have this kind of sessions regularly. I know this is out of the context of FDPPI's objective.
It is not.
But
in fact, we have in our data protection standard of India, we have included one of these, implementation specifications in which we have said the organization should have a proper method by which they will enable communication capabilities of their senior executives. Not only in the data breach, that is external communication, but internal communication also.
Internal is also
For a DPO to be successful, he needs a very strong internal communication skill, because sometimes he will be speaking to peers, sometimes he will be speaking to his superiors, sometimes he will be speaking to the regulator. So communication skill for the data protection officer is very important. So we have made a mention of that, both internal communication and external communication. Of course, there are different ways of expressing it, because oral communication is different, written communication is different. As I think one of the questions which was raised, it was very interesting how we structure the communication from an organization to another person, where we have a two-level communication scheme. In fact, sometimes we use that in corporate. For example, I used to be, let us say, a banker. So sometimes we have to refuse a loan. Okay, so that is a negative news which you have to communicate to the person. There, maybe there is a manager, there is an accountant. So one will take the responsibility of saying that we tried our best, but my manager did not sanction, or something like that. So that kind of division of a responsibility to reduce
basically,
impact. Yeah.
It turns out to be shoot the messenger. If somebody has to be shot, that did not be the primary one. So, but it's a way, it's a solution. It's the needed solution.
So lot of thought can go into such communication, and definitely it has to be built over a period of time. And definitely the experience alone will teach somebody. We do make
I'm sure.
mistakes initially, and perhaps if we can learn out of our mistakes, we become better communicators, I suppose. Anyway, thanks for opening, say, the minds of our people to this new kind of skill. Because all our skills is not, say, security, information security, or law, or something like that. Ultimately, this also.
I was just saying from the point, sir, that our primary focus is on data privacy, data security, data protection. But these skills do matter. And that's why while our conversations on the Telegram group, this point came up, and that's why I volunteered that I do communicate, I do conduct this session. And it was nice that, this happened.
Thank you. Yeah, Manju, 5 hours. Yeah.
No, I don't have anything to add, sir. Thank you, Namith, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Goel, for joining. Thank you, everyone. And Namith, actually, I was initially probably hesitant and a little bit shy to communicate, but now I'm scared to communicate because you have made me conscious of the complex process.
It happens, ma'am. It's a part of the process. But, just like when we don't know anything about a new topic, or when we are not comfortable with a new topic, we're not skilled in that. But once we start consciously working on it, point by point, step by step, the confidence automatically comes in. And this becomes a part of our personality.
Yes, that was on a lighter vein, but what you have explained, I mean, when you have explained this process, it is easy for the person to pick up the weak areas or the areas of improvement and try to work on it. I was just joking about scaring me. It was actually understanding the process actually helps in improvement. Thank you.